A very good evening to all our viewers who are just joining at Kopi Events, and this is your host Vance here, as usual, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Kopi with Vance with me, as usual. Before we start, here's my cup of coffee as well. So, cheers to everyone. I'm sure today my speaker also having his cup of coffee with him. I'm not sure if he still drinks coffee, but probably I'm sure he's searching right now. Where's my coffee? Where's my coffee? Okay, getting into the program today. Today, as you all know, the topic today we are going to talk about is the minefield that is the human mind. And today we have a guest speaker. I think he's more like a brother to me right now, even though we have not met. A great speaker, a great doctor, a great consultant, a neurologist, as well as that's Dr. Sathindren. I'm going to bring him up. Hello, doctor. How are you there?
Hello, Vance. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Doc. As usual, this is my third time with you on a talk show. This with Kopi Events,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
I was telling the viewers. I mean, I'm telling you that every time I see you, you have this glow in your face. Like a sun. So you want to talk a little bit about that first, because I know we just discussed that earlier on.
No. It's just that you're just happy. You've come through a fruitful day. At the end of the day, you think you have done something good. So it's a natural feeling actually.
I see. Is that how consultant all behave as a neurologist? You know how
It all
to.
depends. Of course, as I was just telling you, there are good days, there are bad days. So it's as long as you make sure the good days are outnumber the bad days,
Okay.
you've lived it well.
Thank you, doctor. It's a great honor to have you in the show, because
No,
I
it's
know.
a great honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, doc. And I always enjoy, because as a neurologist, I think there's so much to understand, and you shared a lot of your experiences. But what I know, maybe I can just share with you. You are treating, diagnosing disorders that affect the brain, the spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system, everything. You are like the puzzle. You're putting everything in together: headaches, sleep disorders, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, neuropathic pain, dementia, Parkinson's disease, and stroke. The list just goes on. I mean, how do you manage this? I mean, yeah,
No,
you some.
it's we are still sitting on a very, very steep learning curve. It's still there. We are learning something new every day. We learn from our patients. We learn the frustrations of not being able to treat certain conditions. So it's an ongoing process, and that's why you don't get bored, because you see something different, something new, something challenging every day. So if you're looking for a challenge in life, then yeah, it's that. If you take it as a challenge, if you take it as something that it's something that you can do and be better at from the last time you saw it, it's actually a fulfilling feeling. So basically, that's how we want to move along with the idea of it.
Okay, before we start even engaging into the topic, I mean, as a neurologist, as a doctor, if there's another name you want to call as what you are doing as a profession, what will you call? A plumber, electrician? What do you call yourself?
Electrician, mostly electrician or a diagnostician,
Yeah.
more of that. But the thing is, it's like dealing with electronics and electrical, so it's a bit different here.
So you call
So
yourself
electrician
electrician.
then.
Okay, doc. Let's get into the topic today. I mean, there's so much for us to understand from you, from your expertise, and even from fellow of doctors as a neurologist. Doctor, as we know that certain. Of course, we are going to the topic, but we are just coming a little bit on the illness part, the disease part, where certain things like Parkinson disease or even sleep disorders. What are the current treatments at this point in time? Because after the pandemic, the post-pandemic right now, and become endemic, a lot of people are having these post-trauma and kind of psychologically have been affected. Sleep disorders, fear, loneliness. How is, in your spectrum, in your expertise, how do you actually get them better?
No, actually, the first thing is to actually delve into the real source of the issue, right? A lot of times what you think is the issue is not really the issue. It's all that background problems, and then it's like a cup that keeps filling slowly, but you only notice the last drop that overflows, but you forgot that there's a whole lot of things filling your cup all the way up. So you must understand that if you can actually not let the cup fill all the way up, the last drop is not going to overflow. But we are so obsessed with that last drop that we forget that everything else is still sitting in that cup. So if you can get this analogy, basically what we are trying to do is we try to tell you that these problems were all there even before the pandemic at different levels for different people. It's just that it changes now with some extra things there. But the problem is we can face those new problems if there were no old problems, that baggage that we were carrying on with us. So that's exactly how you should look at it. If you look at it this way, it becomes easier to dissect everything out. So it's as simple as catching that overflown drop, but the drops that are still inside your cup, if you had managed to take them out earlier, there will have been space for this drop, the last drop, and not actually overflow out. We also must accept that some drops will stay in this cup. You're not going to be able to run away and empty your entire cup. If you look now your coffee, there'll still be something just there. But if you have actually now taken the ones that you can take out, you would have saved a lot more space for extra coffee.
There you go. Doc, I remember the last session that we had with you. You use car as an example to talk about the human body. The driver. I still remember I asked you, who is the body, who is the soul. It was a great conversation. But today we're not going into that. Today we're going to go into the minefield. We talked about the topic, the minefield. Why do we even choose this topic, Doc? I mean, is there something that suit to the current environment right now?
Yes. Okay. We are now all talking. Everybody's now forgotten about the pandemic. Everybody's now talking about what's going on in, what used to be the USSR before, and now with Ukraine, what's going on there. So that is probably on everybody's mind now. So
Sorry,
basically, I can.
I got to pause you here for a while. And the petrol prices, people are talking about it.
Yeah, that's another thing. But we are so used to this petrol going up and down like a seesaw. Sometimes we just say that every drop of a coin or every excuse, somebody kicks up the petrol price. It's the easiest thing to do. Just find some excuse that is totally unrelated, and still the petrol price will still go up. So that's one thing. But going back to this, I don't know how many of our viewers were here or lived during the time of the Vietnam War, for example. And although now you're actually seeing something very similar, but at that time, the Vietnam War, the war was actually, the cause of the war actually was turned by these booby traps and the mines that the Viet Cong used to put for the American troops. So they laid all these little mines, MINES mines, along the way, where they thought, along the jungle paths, somehow they knew where these mines were planted. And of course, the American soldiers didn't know it. And as the American soldiers walked into those jungle paths, they got their feet blown away, they got all sorts of injuries and deaths and all that. And that actually changed the course of the war. And that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. Because if you look at the human mind, now what's different from our mind and minds of every other animal in this world is that we are gifted with cognition. So we need to understand what cognition is, friends. Cognition is the ability to learn new things, learn, implant, and apply. Right? Without having to go for real good training, we have a lot of cognition. All our higher functions is based on this. Now, this is like a mind. It helps and it hinders as well, because that's where you implant that thing that you have learned, either helps or it hinders, right? So how do I say it helps? Because if you had learned something today, if you had learned that no, do not park your car under a tree, that helps, because the next time you don't want a bird poo on your car, you will remember, the last time my car was full of bird poo because I parked it under a tree. Now, but if you don't put it in the right place, what will happen is then you become unhappy each time you drive your car or you want to park your car. Then you say, something is going on, the birds are going to poo on my car. So that's why I'm saying it's a minefield. If you have implanted it in the right place, you will actually benefit. But if you don't know where you implanted it, or it's in a negative place, this actually hinders you. Now, another thing that you can learn is from, say, for example, what you do with your money, how you invest it. You learn as you go along. It's a learning curve. But these little esoteric pearls that you learn along the way, if you are negative about it, you're going to say something like, oh, there's no point saving and investing, I'll lose it anyway, let me just go and gamble it away in Marina Bay or Genting or something like that. And then that is a negative connotation. So that's the minefield that I'm talking about. I'm trying to put forward, if you don't plant your minds correctly, it's not going to help you. In fact, it's going to hinder you. And sometimes bad experiences that are implanted in our brain, instead of using it as a lesson that we have learned, we delve on it, we indulge in it, we keep thinking about it. If you had a bad relationship with someone, instead of learning from it and moving on, you cannot shake that feeling. It's that mind that is planted in you, and then it hinders you from actually forming another better relationship. You start going back, or even worse, what you're trying to do is you are now sitting down and thinking, how can I get revenge? How can I get back that 2 years that this relationship with this person has wasted? So you start going into this kind of downward spiral, as we call it. So this is a minefield that I'm trying to talk to you about.
Doc, when you say about this minefield, there are actually two things that come to me. It's like, you don't step on it, it is there, but it's how we maneuver from it by not stepping onto it. Number two, can we apply this as what we call positive psychology? Is this something to do with positive psychology?
No, obviously. Okay, going back to that, the Viet Cong slept much better knowing that they had mines planted. They knew that the first mine that was let off, they knew that the Americans were already coming in. It was a good alarm system, you see. So they slept much more peacefully at night, knowing that, okay, we have done our job for the day. We have put it in the right place. Now we are safe in our little burrows wherever we are. So that's a positive point. So if you've learned from a bad thing, or you've learned from what you have done, if you have implanted your mind in the right place, it's going to be beneficial. Having said that, think about it. After the Americans surrendered and ran off in 1975, the Vietnamese were stuck with millions of mines, which some of them forgot where they planted it. Some of them, the soldiers may have died, the Viet Cong people would have died. They don't know where they planted it. They don't know where these guys planted their bomb. Until today, you are still getting people in Vietnam or like Cambodia losing their legs due to something that happened 40 years ago. So this is the thing that you will carry on with you. So mines have their benefits, but they also have their detraction as well. This is the one that is going to happen to you. So as I said, if you didn't find a way to know where you planted your mines, you didn't find a way to know when to extricate those mines out in a way that you can feel, and that's what it is.
Very nice way of explaining, doctor. It gives a very clear, about the mind. We are the one who implant it, and then eventually, later part of the year, that we accidentally step it because we do not know where is it.
Yes.
Doctor, in your years of experiences, in your expertise in your field, where are we right now in terms of the human mind? I mean, where have we evolved from where we were before as a first human being, even evolved before? Where are we right now? What are the possibilities that we're looking at? Because you see the cases of depression, anxiety, anxious, and a lot of other mind-related illnesses are on the rise. Is there any way that we can suppress it or even to prevent it? Example, burnout. That when you have a burnout means we are tired. We need to recuperate, recover, rest. But how about things like depressions? Is there any way that we can suppress it?
Okay, the first part and the second part, I'll just remember these two parts. But let me go to the beginning. Where are we right now? Is just like, if I go back to my car analogy. Now take yourself back to the time when Carl Benz, took out that little three-wheeler and drove it around. The average person around him didn't know how that worked. Correct? Most people didn't know how these wheels were turning, But over time, they started teaching how a internal combustion engine starts to work. People started learning that. So now the average person can give you a general idea how it works. Of course, you have automotive engineers as well, and those guys know everything about it. But so that's where we are now. The average person actually has a much better understanding of how the human mind works. So having said that, that helps because that's why most of them actually manage to overcome or at least understand what's going on. If you start to at least have those basics, so at least everybody knows now what. So so the same way when you take your car to the mechanic now, the mechanic is going to find it very difficult to pull a fast one on you because you know your basics now. 60, 100 years ago, most people didn't know how it works. So you could have tell them that, that God is sending something from the sky for your car to run, you would have believed it. Right. But the downside about this is the diseases that you mentioned, depression, anxiety, and all. Now, that is controlled by our subconscious mind. A subconscious mind, just like you sweat in the heat without you being able to control it, your mind takes a situation and decides whether this is good or bad. That triggers either anxiety, depression. It's just an exaggerated normal response. You are anxious if you're in a lonely place and there are some strange looking people walking around, and so it's a natural anxiety because your brain has now thought about it and said, what, you're alone. There are some guys who look like vans, 5 of them walking around, rubbing their beards and looking really scary. Your mind starts to get anxious. That's a normal reaction. But if your subconscious mind cannot start to differentiate and it starts releasing it for everything, despite there being no tangible threat, you get anxious. The same way, if you see say an example, a dog has been knocked by a car, you naturally feel sad for the dog. But if your mind takes every little bit and seems to think that someone has knocked into a dog, then you get depressed. So that's the highlight of what I'm trying to say is this. Despite us knowing how the mind works, we cannot control it. Because these aspects that you mentioned, anxiety, depression, temper, anger, is all controlled by our subconscious mind. So that's why, that's the difference that you need, our viewers, including me, we all need to understand. So I get anxious at times, I get unhappy at times, but I know because I know. It's just like a mechanic, he lets his car run with all that noise, squeaking here and there, and he's not really bothered. But when you go, he tells you, your timing chain is about to fly off the car. So that's the thing that, as a person, we need to know. So your original question was, where are we? We are at the level where the average person has been taught, at least in school, how the mind works. He knows why there's anxiety and depression. He knows that the neurotransmitters in the brain are not in sync, or they're not balanced, or they're being either released too much or too little as we go along. So that's the reason why, I guess.
Is it something that you're going to relate to the car, the firing pattern, or the EFI, electronic fire?
Yes, injection? Correct. All that. It's all that. If your fuel, the fuel that goes to each cylinder is not in sync, you are going to get an engine misfire.
So that's proven. We are talking about the car again.
Because I think most people do relate to cars because they drive it every day. They look at it every day, so it's easy to understand, and then it takes the mystery away from the whole thing. As I told you,
But Doc, are we looking at the new electric vehicle right now? Because we have moved from.
We are, but again, we are just replacing one thing with another. It's the same principle. The principle doesn't change. Energy is a constant. It's either you move it. The electrical car, what it does, it moves more energy to movement rather than heat. So if you focus your energy into that, obviously you put a very good point. So this is how you can understand that even the human body doesn't have to treat itself as an internal combustion engine. It can start to treat itself as an electrical engine, which then you get more bang for your buck.
Well said, Doctor. Doctor, just along the line, before we go into the next question, is it something to do with the hormone? I mean, there are two questions to it. Is it something to do with the hormones like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, one part? Or is it someone's character? Or is it someone's behavior or the operations in terms of how they want to behave? Is it a behavior change? Is that something will help to prevent all these away? To identify earlier of these symptoms. If somebody's feeling very tired, exhaustion, probably they're in a burnout. Or maybe they're feeling very lonely, not IPUB on a Saturday night, they're feeling very sleepy, tired, sluggish. Then they know, hey, you know what? Something is wrong on me. Okay, I need to go and exercise. I need to go and spend time with my family. There are certain remedies to do. So do you think that the character or certain to do with the hormones plays a part?
No, definitely, definitely. It's the interplay, because you are talking about of you've got a number of issues, or a number of neurotransmitters are playing in sync. It's just like a very, very complex cocktail. And depending on each situation, you must get the right cocktail, the right mix. So obviously, this amount of cocktail release or cocktail concoction comes over time, over experience. That's the cognition I mentioned to you about. From past experience, you learn how to react. You learn not to shout at a policeman, but you sometimes shout at some security guard and you're not happy with him. You probably give him a piece of your mind. But if it was a policeman, you are taught, or you're learned not to trigger off under the same circumstances. So the same thing happens in our mind. So your question is whether, yeah, what happens is you can try, but the problem is, in the heat of the moment, the automatic reaction takes precedence over this. The automatic first point reaction. This is what I'm trying to tell you. If you're trying to impress your friends by putting a hand on a hot kettle, the first reaction will be for the hand to move away. But you can override it by, keep putting your hand there and impressing them. Yes, but the first reaction is always the jerk, and that's out of your control. So in a normal situation, you put your hand and then you'll jerk it away. But in an abnormal situation, when you force yourself, then you start to put it there, and then you start to keep it there, much to your detriment. But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes your mind takes over from the conscious thought. Most of us run on subconscious behavior, and that's what the cognition is. That's why we do well. We don't cross the road when there are cars coming, whereas a dog may sometimes not even realize that it shouldn't be crossing the road when a car is coming. So just to put an example, this is why, because that's our cognition. This is where we implant this knowledge. We have been taught, or we have seen somebody being knocked down. A dog may see another dog being knocked down by a car, but may not learn from that experience. It will not learn from that experience because it doesn't have cognition. It doesn't have these higher functions where it sticks there.
It's what humans we have, but we still sometimes stubborn. Humans.
Correct. Somebody was asking a question: is the environment the cause of this reaction? Yes. Okay. Now talking about environment, it depends. It's just like this. Think about it this way: how you interact with someone in a cold room and a warm room is environment. If you're comfortable, he's comfortable, everybody, talks normally. But if it's a very uncomfortable room, people start getting irritable, or they start thinking. So environment definitely plays a part. And it also conditions how we think and how we run. So the irritability of a very warm room just is translated into an irritability with the person we are dealing with.
Thank you, doctor, for that. Of course, as we have a couple of more questions that came in, but probably I was just going to take one question of that by Lucas. What are the diseases caused to the brain? Probably he's asking about, is there something like a impactful, maybe, I'm not sure if he's referring to depression, Lucas, but looks like the question is directed to the brain itself.
Yes. No, diseases to the brain is what the entire neurology syllabus is all about. We can go on forever and ever. Yes. But basically, you can divide it into what we call the brain has got two aspects: the physical aspect and the mental aspect. So if you have a physical disease to the brain, then that is a different scenario. For example, you get a stroke in the brain. So obviously then your hand stops moving, your mouth stops moving, you can't see very well. So those are all physical problems. The second group of diseases is the mental diseases. That's what we have been discussing all the while: anxiety, depression, and the things that are reflected as a normal intact brain. So when you take a scan of the brain, it's perfectly normal, but the patient is sitting down there as miserable as ever. So this is in the microscopic level. This is different. So this is in the mental state of the son. So it's not a structural problem. You'll never be able to take a scan and tell this person A is depressed, this person B is anxious, this person C is of a hot temper, or the person D is melancholic. All these things come as a part of the microscopic action of the brain. So broadly, you can divide them into these.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Lucas, for the question. And doctor, doctor, I mean, as you just mentioned, a very beautiful thing about how the brain is all about, the two segment of it. People who are going under bipolar or personality disorder or split personality. I mean, is there something like you do a scan and find out, or is it based on assessments?
It definitely is based on assessment. These people normally have intact brain. Of course, yes, certain people have a condition that can translate, but that's a different story altogether. You are talking about the general person who comes with this problem with no previous trauma and nothing's that causing it. They will have an intact normal brain. It's just that the balance of chemicals run out of sync. It's very simple. It's like baking a cake. If you put too much sugar, it tastes too sweet. You put too much butter, it's very wet. It's just like that, right? This is like your coffee as well. Too much coffee, it tastes bitter. Too much sugar, it tastes sweet. So it's this recipe that is out of sync in a person with bipolar disorder. So actually, I always tell them we swing between a very small. You just imagine a seesaw, right? If right in the where's this camera? Okay, right in the middle of the seesaw, right in the middle of the seesaw, the movement, the oscillation is very small. So sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad. With no particular reason, and this is perfectly normal. Sometimes you get up feeling cheery, sometimes you get up feeling, oh, today doesn't sound like a good day. But then if you look at the as we go further from this midpoint, you notice that the oscillations are a bit more. Now, so then you get something like anxiety, and when too much of anxiety, all the happy chemicals are down, you will feel a bit depressed. Now you already moved there. But if you move to the end of the spectrum, there is a lot of oscillations now. You see that the amplitude of movement is much higher. This is bipolar. So this exaggerated anxiety, so they become manic. They come really out of this one. And then they really sink into a major depression, which means they don't get up from the bed. It's not just a matter of just feeling down and low. They are totally non-functional at the time. So this big swing, it's all part of the same spectrum, but that you're swinging at, you're sitting in different points of the seesaw. So that's how you understand bipolar. So you will never see this in the scan, but this is happening because your neurotransmitters are now really out of balance. So it's just like coffee. You tell your wife, I know your coffee doesn't taste sweet enough, then she takes the entire Tupperware and throws it inside in anger for you and gives it to you, and then you're left with a whole lump of sugar in there. That's what's happened, right? Or you tell her coffee is too sweet, she takes the whole coffee and throws it inside, and it's so bitter you can't drink it. So this is the exaggerated version of what has happened. So these small oscillations with these kind of diseases move into bigger oscillations as time goes on.
Doctor, it's very interesting. I mean, like you said, pertaining to the brain, we can talk for days and days and days with your expertise, humble expertise. But why does it turns against us? Why? I mean, of course, there's no answer for it. I mean, we are just using its why. But is there a particular reason, doctor? I mean, in your expertise,
no, there's no one particular reason. As you say, someone said environment. Yes, it depends. You see, right? As you have said, we are pulling out of a pandemic, so the cup is slowly filling up faster than ever, right? Jobs are being lost, business are ruined, children are not studying, they can't go to school, they are studying online and faffing around. So this issue is another thing that's there. But to answer the original question, a lot of times we have undertaken things that technically our brain is not designed to do. You see, our brain technically is not designed to look at this computer screen with a camera, with someone there and then thinking and then talking and all that. This is actually not what our brain is naturally been designed to do. Our brain is naturally designed to use our eyes to find some food, run away from our enemies, find some shelter. That's how the brain is designed. What we have now gone and done as humans is we have upped the ante, and we are upping the ante much faster. Now, if you think about it, when I was in school, that's in the 70s and 80s, it was just one single textbook.
Doctor, I'm just going to pause you here.
Yeah.
What you said once you were in the school, but I think as a doctor, you're still studying as well now.
True. But just to illustrate the example is once in school, it was a single textbook for a single subject. We had a science textbook, we had a mathematics textbook, I think we had a geography textbook. Okay, so that was all you needed to know to pass your exam. Now you see what has happened. Now we have Google, we have Wikipedia, we have an information explosion using the same amount of brain capacity trying to handle the exam that our forefathers set with one textbook. And that also the textbook would have been outdated, and then somebody just underlined the important points. Now you have information where is every line is important. If you just open one article in Wikipedia, you will find at least 100 times more than what your textbook showed you just on that one article. So this is the problem. We are actually overriding our brains. We are running our brains at a very high pace, and that's how your question of burnout comes. Because nobody talked about burnout 60, 70 years ago, unless it was a really bad job that you were doing or you're really in a lot of trouble. People burnt out then, but now people are burning out like flies because one of the thing is this: the information explosion and the expectation. So the idea is, you saw a textbook last time, say, yeah, I better learn this textbook, I'll go and pass my exam. Now the thing is, I better memorize the entire Wikipedia or whatever encyclopedia and sit for the exam, because any question can come out from any point there. Even if it's a multiple choice question, you're still struggling to make sense of it. So you're using the same capacity for much more work. So something has to give at some point.
Thank you, Doctor. We have one more by Christina. She talked about something about how can we reduce stress on the brain. Can we do that, Doctor?
No, the problem is it all depends. It depends on what your brain takes as stress. Stress to you may not be stress to me, and vice versa. Some people cannot stand sitting in a traffic light for 3 minutes, when, say there are no cars on the other side, but it's still 3 minutes of waiting. Some people actually are driven nuts by that one small trigger. Whereas some people are just fiddling with their phones and doing something at the traffic light. They don't even realize 3 minutes is gone. So some people are not even bothered by the 3 minutes. They think, okay, the 3 minutes I'm going to take and have a good time, just relax and, contemplate life's mysteries. So that's just one example of how stress is different from person to person. So when you reduce, it depends on what minefield you have put in. So the same minefield, if you have taken a mine and put it in your brain that says, all right, if I don't pass this exam, my whole life is gone, that is a minefield. That mine can explode at any time because you're waiting for this thing, or you're thinking, I need to get that promotion, that junior fellow is overtaking me at work. That's another minefield. So you go to work every day thinking, when is he going to get his promotion, and I am not going to get my promotion, and I'm going to be left behind. I'm going to work under him. He's going to, haze me maximum. These kind of things are minefields that you say. So that's why it depends. If you are not really bothered about the situation, that's a reduction of stress. But if your mind seems to put this as a stress, so that's your own mind's work. So you really cannot run away from it. So this is just number of examples as to the question from Christina is, how do you reduce the stress? You really have to now post-mortem and see what are the stresses, what's filling your cup. And whatever you think you can empty from that cup, if you empty it, then the question of an overflowing cup will not arise, at least at that point in time.
Beautiful, Doctor. I mean, beautiful answering those two questions, and also talking about the brains and the firing pattern. You always explain in a very easy ways by using the cup today. I learned something today. I learned about the cup. I learned about the coffee. You also taught me the wife will either put the coffee inside the sugar or the sugar goes inside. But it's still the same, right? But, bitterness in terms of coffee beans and sugar. Well said, as well as the car as well. You talk about the firing pattern and kind of stuff. It's always very, very interesting to have discussion with you, Doctor, because the way of understanding, and I'm sure the viewers also love the way you explain, and especially the glow in the face that you always have it as a neurologist. maybe we just talk a little bit about yourself, doctor. I mean, I know you told me before you enjoy what you do, and a little history about yourself. But in a day to day, how is your scope? I mean, how do you manage, and what do you see? Do you feel emotional in terms of, when you see your patients at certain issues? How do you actually manage that as well? Because I know it can be a very hard one to most of the doctors.
No, yes. A doctor, I think, basically lives or survives on empathy. You need to be able to put yourself in the patient's shoes, but you cannot delve or dwell in it. That's the key point. So you have a patient, you put yourself in their shoes, you understand their problem, but you don't stay in those shoes. Because if you stay in those shoes, then you translate that into the next patient. You cannot get into another patient's shoes if you haven't gotten out of your first patient's shoes. So that's how I look at it in a way. We all understand. I tell myself I might have a stroke one day, I might have a heart attack, I might be having cancer. You cannot say this. But then I always tell, and I also tell my children that I said, for me, I look back and say, the number of years I got, have I contributed enough? And then that should be a satisfying point. And then after that, whatever comes, it comes. Whatever I can reduce, I reduce. But in the job basis or in the work basis, it's very frustrating. Yes, you do see people, you put yourself in that position, say, oh, I'm going to go and lie down in the bed like this gentleman over here, and he's probably only about 5 years older than me, or he's younger than me. Yet if you dwell in that shoes, you don't contribute what you already have.
I mean, nicely, doc. I mean, it's kind of amazing to see, especially a lot of doctors as well as yourself, working in, long hours, as well as putting your full commitment and dedication towards the health. I was just going to ask you one more question, doc. I mean,
Yeah.
in the years of your experiences, and I know I'm coming back to the same question because I'm trying to find out, how the world started, when there's no energy, something like that. Is there a ultimate for the human mind, like, say, for example, for yourself, right? You can be the extreme positive, I can be the extreme negative. You are saying, oh, I'm living life every day, but I'm saying I'm dying every day because expiry date. Is there a kind of a positive psychology or interventions to motivate a particular person? I mean, based on, maybe we know that probably this is just his way of operation of himself. Is there any way that we can just pull him up by the
No,
word?
you must, everybody should realize that they are contributing to society. You know, you see, even a person who is really feeling down for the day has bought rice and chicken from the market. He's contributed to the rice seller and the chicken seller's income for the day. He's contributed something. So without him going, and if everybody else is doing the same thing, the man who's selling rice will not be able to feed his children. So people just don't realize, in this is just a very crude example, but people just don't realize that they are all contributing in a way. They may not feel it, but they are contributing. Everybody is contributing. There's nobody who is not. Everybody is in a way part of the system. So you must realize that, okay, I've already contributed. Once you realize you're contributing, that's the only time then you can up your ante a little bit. That means you increase your contribution, right? So that's the difference which I'm trying to, I hope I've answered the question, but this is basically it. A lot of people feel down because they feel they are not contributing as much as the next guy, but there's always somebody who's contributing more than the next guy, and then the next guy and the next guy. Everybody starts at a certain rung on a ladder. But if you realize that you are part of the system and do not try to be part of the problem, you will be the solution. So everybody has a contribution to make. In another way, even if you're not doing anything, the fact that you're not doing something bad is also contributing to society. Because of your unhappiness, imagine you just go and jump off a bridge. You have not contributed anything. But by not doing so, you have contributed something. You have put a lot of people not having to be unhappy about what you have done. So everybody contributes. So this is why a lot of people are stressed out, because either they feel they're not contributing or they're not contributing enough. But a lot of people don't draw their own line in the sand. They don't draw that baseline first. If you realize that even a guy who just lived today without contributing anything, actually ate rice, ate some chicken, ate some vegetables, and he contributed. And because of his action, somewhere some farmer is going to be motivated to plant vegetables or rear chickens for the next day.
Perfect.
So although this is, you can always say there are other people eating the chicken, but nevertheless, this is how you expand the thought. So this is your point of thinking. If you think that you have contributed something and someone else has benefited, then you start to feel good for yourself. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. That was well explained. I mean, can't say way much more better than this. Doc, we're just going to take one last question from this particular viewer about emotions affect the brain. I'm sure it can affect through the processes. Your
Yes.
take on this?
Yes. Now, again, emotions and the thought process are interlinked with each other. They are interlinked. That's what they coin the term frame of mind. The word frame of mind is in what frame of mind, and inside this frame, you have the interplay of emotions and the thought process, your understanding process. So if you're in a good, that's why they say, oh, please go and tell the boss something when he's in a good mood. He will say, okay. This is exactly what it is. We realize that when someone has positive emotions, his thought process is clearer. He understands what you're saying. It's not that he's going to do a great favor because he's in a good mood, but he's going to see your way of things. So if you go and tell the boss something when he's in a good mood, he's more open to listening to your ideas, and he'll say, yeah, you know what, I see sense. But if he's in a bad mood or he's unhappy about something, whatever you say to him comes across as negative. So this question is that you need to interplay. That's why you said you need a frame of mind. If you're in a good frame of mind, if you have positive thoughts and you don't let this mind feel, you know that the mind feels, and use the mind feels, in a positive way, then remember where they are, when to take them out, what not to step on them yourself. You will actually find that your mind's function is actually improving leaps and bounds.
Perfect, Doctor. Thank you so much. Just one more question from Sabai Suresh Kumar. He asked a very general question regarding about blood donation. He asked, after being a cancer survivor, the treatment, does he have to wait for 6 months to donate blood? Do you think that he able to, or you have to go and get the right information from a blood
No,
bank?
it actually depends also a lot on the type of cancer we are talking about. Okay, so I cannot be very specific about this one because different cancers are managed differently. Some people even have blood cancers, and obviously that's a very negative point. So when you say you're cured of cancer, it just means that the cancer cells are not active anymore. But we still don't understand a lot about cancer, and a lot of times there's a lot of theories that cancers can still spread by implantation. The trigger may not be known. The triggers are in the cells, and that's why a lot of people were worried about the vaccinations as well, because they were thinking that the triggers are being transported in the cells. So normally, if you are a survivor, we are good, everybody's happy, but you should let your own doctor, actually your hematologist or your oncologist, tell you whether your type of cancer allows you to donate blood in the first place. Right? Squamous cell carcinoma in the anal, yeah, okay, again, it's very good to know this, but the problem is there's always a problem that we don't know whether it will recur, at which point it's recurring. A lot of times, sad to say, it may recur without even us knowing. So you may be donating blood at that time, but there are still cells around there which may affect people in different ways. All having said that, just remember that most of the time it's not the blood that is donated. They're just taking the cells out, they're dividing out the cells, the red cells, the white cells, and all that. But to be frank, medical knowledge cannot tell you that this is a perfectly safe thing, whether you're just pushing this to another person.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, viewers, for all the questions that you have engaged, Doctor. And he always explains in a very easy, and I'm absorbing, I'm learning as well. That's all, Doctor. Thank you so much.
All right.
So when are we coming to Penang, or when are you going to come to Singapore? So
I don't know, but I might show up one of these days, Vince.
I have to fly down to to the place where you are right now, and try all the local delicacies, and
That will be worth your while. Believe me, it really will be worth your while.
so let's do this, all right? Deal, all right? One of us will take turns to come there. How about that?
Definitely,
And
yes.
we will have a real coffee, because we have been doing this for 2.5 years, 2 over years plus, and then
Yeah, something like that. True, true, true. And I always enjoy the invite, so it's good. It's good.
thank you, doctor. Thank you so much for your precious time. I know you should be resting.
Not
I
at
know it's
all.
been a long
No,
day.
no, 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 no. I totally enjoyed myself today too.
Thank you. And it's a very great way of explaining about the mind field. It's always in our mind. The way you explain, I think our viewers definitely enjoyed. We receiving all the thank you messages right now. Thank you, Vance and Doctor, for these useful. Sabai is saying thank you. Love you guys. We love you too, man. That's all about our life. We learn and we live with blessed
Yeah,
days.
yes, true.
Thank you so much. Any final words, Doctor, from your
No,
side?
I just look forward to be here one of these days, another day, sooner rather than later. No
All
problem.
right.
I'm always happy.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. And I will definitely catch you very soon, or you're going to catch me very soon. And as usual, it's been a great pleasure to have you in our show, doc. Thank you so much. You see, and we got a lot of messages coming right now. Thank you, viewers.
Thank you to
Thank
all the
you.
viewers for all your kind words. Yeah, it makes my day as well. So that's why you see, when you ask me why I'm always smiling, words like this, just do it for me.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. Have a pleasant evening. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you. I'll take leave now. Bye bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Bye, Wes.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So that is the I mean is always been my pleasure to have Dr. Sachin here. Sathindren is an amazing individual who didn't fails to explain in a very in an easy way, right? Thank you, viewers, as well. As I can see, more messages are coming in. It's been a great pleasure. I mean, I'm not sure about you, viewers, and I think I learn in every of my talk session, especially Kopi Advance, because I enjoy. Oh, we have a few more messages coming in. He's my favorite neurologist. Yes, yes, I'm sure. Right, I'm very sure with his great outspoken and great character and what can I say? His great attitude as well. Thank you, viewers, for joining today's session. As you all know, today's talk session is about the human mind, right? It's all about the minefield. We make sure that we don't step on it. We are the one who are causing all these minefields in our mind, and little worries, little anxiety that we live daily. Sometimes it affects our sleep. Sometimes it affects our mood. Sometimes we tear. Sometimes we cry. We are full of emotions. We are often being called the creatures of hormones, creatures of habits. What we can say as time comes by, we can keep on changing. But whether to live blissfully or to live miserably, it's our choices, right? Every individual has a choice to live miserably, misery, or blissfully. It's an all upon options that we have. Like I mentioned to doctor that earlier, right? We can say we lived a beautiful day today, or rather, we can say we are dying every day. So it's a way of positivity, but of course, certain conditions, we, as much as how positive we are, certain things need to be diagnosed by doctors, need to be diagnosed by neurologists with, of course, a lot of diseases and illnesses also coming in. But most of the time, we are the cause of most of these illnesses and diseases for our body. Thank you so much. We have more messages that's coming in. Thank you from Sharon and Sharon Jenny. Thank you so much. Thank you so much of messages coming in. In my past 22 years of experiences in the fitness industry and health industry, I think one thing that I learned is we have to stay positive in every situation that is thrown at us, because life is unpredictable. Life will throw you the most challenging, most toughest challenges at you when you least expect it. Rather than sitting in and worrying about it day in, day out, you are living miserably, right? You are living in a misery. It's again a choices, all right? One will look at the sky and say, beautiful sun, it's amazing. Another one looks at the sun and say, oh, it's blazing hot. Why this bloody sun is there? It's all about options. But it's how we live. It's how we get back. It's how we portray ourselves. It's like a glowing, like I always tell doctor, he always look very glowing, right? And you can see that in his face. It's about the days. Yes, a great message. All days are beautiful. Wake up in the morning with full of love and blessing. How perfect, amazing viewers. Thank you so much, Sabai. Suresh Kumar. I hope all the best for your health and also to live blissfully as well. Do catch us again in every Wednesday 9 p.m. at Kopi with Vance. It has been a great pleasure for 2.5 years of live talk shows. I enjoy it. If one of the Wednesdays, I think there's only about twice. We missed twice in the entire 2.5 years. I really enjoy it with great speakers, great professionals, great expertise who comes in and share their views. Definitely, if you think that you have learned something today, especially with Dr. You definitely must share this so that more people can actually benefit from this live show. All right. A great thanks to Dr. Satin. And we got more messages that's coming in. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As usual, 9 p.m. Tune in. There's no reminders. You just got to log in. It's complimentary. It's Facebook. It's in YouTube. And it's LinkedIn. So join us. Right now, I'm going to sign off and I'm going to catch you soon again, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Till then, fans, Kopi with Vance. Adios, amigos.